Good afternoon, Las Vegas. This is Clark with the Herd, coming to you live from Las Vegas today on YouTube from Radio Tribune. Welcome to the show. If there's anyone out there that'd like to give us a call and share something with us, 702-493-5222. Talk directly to us here at the show live, and you can say whatever you want to say. We allow anybody to come in and spill their beans, if you will. That's what we are here. We try to be a forum for all comers, anyone that wants to say anything. We try to concentrate a lot on the election because we're in the midst of this cycle right now. But our main emphasis here at the Tribune has and always will be is corruption, because I think that's a huge cancer in our society, and it's something that we need to concentrate on because it'll destroy this country. We are becoming tremendously corrupted. All avenues of government. It's all about the money. It's all about how people can rip you off that are in power. We've let these people hijack our country. We've elected these people to do their job, which is our bidding, what we want them to do, and they don't do it. They immediately are bought by special interest groups, and they cease being elected officials and become bought and paid for operatives of the special interest groups, and they become corrupt as such. And if they hope to be re-elected, they become more and more corrupt, because the deeper they get into it, the more favors they owe people, the more they have to operate, the more money they need, and the beat goes on, and they get worse and worse and worse. Case in point, look at like a Harry Reid, in power for 36 years, probably one of the most corrupt individuals in recent times, that's still sitting on the Senate. He's a minority leader, but thank God for that, because when he was the majority leader, he was doing things like the nuclear option. What's the nuclear option? It's the way that President Obama, in cahoots with Harry Reid, jammed down the throats of the American economy this Obamacare fraud. And to pass that, they had to lie to the people, had to promise that it was going to reduce your health care costs, promise you that you can keep your doctor, make all these promises that they knew when they were saying these things were an absolute lie. This guy Goober, or whatever his name was, I call him Goober, I don't know what his name, I think his name was Goober, but anyways, he was one of the authors of this Obamacare, at least the planner of how to ram this through, and they were laughing at the American people when they were coming up with these statements and so forth that they all knew were absolute lies when they were saying them, but they had to say them to get the bill passed. Remember, Obama was saying it's not a tax and this and that to get it passed. And then Roberts, the Supreme Court Justice, who was the deciding vote on keeping Obamacare rather than making it unconstitutional, which the mandate is unconstitutional, where the government is making you buy something. That's like making you buy a Chevrolet because they own Chevrolet. I mean, this is obscene. This is an unlawful government. And for Roberts, then he calls it a tax. Well, that's not the premise it was passed on, but John Roberts, to not put on his pants and kind of pass the buck, I think is what he did to the electorate, and thinking that Obama was going to not survive the presidency and get a second term. So a typical judge won't put on his pants, won't make a decision, especially one that has far-reaching results as this did, so he thought he was just putting it off. And then Obama gets re-elected, and then we get these illustrious Republicans in power somewhat that run on the platform that they're going to repeal or not defund Obamacare. And you get a guy like Ryan that gets in there in a leadership position and immediately rubber stamps Obama's whole bill to fund everything, fund Obamacare, fund immigration, fund everything. I mean, these people are liars. I will never respect Paul Ryan ever again, and what he's doing now with this issue over Trump and the judge comment that Trump made, referring to the judge as maybe having a bias because of his heritage. Let me tell you something, folks. These judges, in my opinion, especially here in Nevada, have lost all integrity. They bring with them all their baggage to the bench with them. Whatever their prejudices are, whatever their biases are, whatever their feelings are on a particular day, if they got up on the wrong side of the bed or what have you, they're not going to rule by the law because they don't know what the law is. And they just rule whatever makes the most sense for them at the time for their own self, not for the law, not for upholding anything. No, they just rule against the law, really. It's just despicable. So to me, the courts have absolutely no integrity. And when Donald Trump, who has a lot of experience being the businessman that he is, he has a lot of cases, I'm sure, that have gone on. And his opinion is he doesn't settle any of these cases. Usually he's probably right, and he brings them to the full conclusion. And that way that the people that looking for a free lunch trying to sue Donald Trump thinking he's going to roll over and pay the extortion fees of the lawyers, he doesn't do that. And I think that eliminates a lot of the possible lawsuits against him, because the lawsuits don't get anywhere. So they fail. Now there's an issue with this Trump University. I think there was 5 or 6 students that somebody put together, probably a George Soros or a Move.org or whatever, who knows what the hell's going on. I think this suit happened before he was even running for president. But at any rate, you're always going to find some people that try to litigate something. I mean, look at the lawyers, what they do. They advertise on TV. You ever see these advertisements? If you've taken the drug so-and-so, so-and-so, you may be entitled to a compensation. If you or any family members have died or taken this medication, call this number, 800. It's always an 800 number. There's always a lot of small print down below it. And what they're doing is, through this advertisement, is soliciting to get class action participants in a lawsuit against a pharmaceutical company that created this pill. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad pill. It could be a great pill, but they just pick a name and then they go after it and they attack the pill. They get class action people, a certain amount of them, to go and participate in a lawsuit, thinking they're going to get some money. And then, of course, what happens is the lawyer ends up with most of the money, and they're buying themselves work. And they pick anything. They pick hot coffee. They pick fattened burgers. Anything at all that will create a lawsuit that can make them some revenue, that's what they're after. And it's a damage to our society. This is a cancer on our society. Well, Trump doesn't want to subject himself to that kind of abuse, so he fights the lawsuits. And I would say, if the record was clear, he probably prevails in most of them, just my guess. But it seems that this Trump University deal has had some very funny rulings in it. This judge is no doubt a Clinton supporter, no doubt a liberal, and no doubt it participates in some organizations that are questionable as to their integrity and their game plan, their agenda, if you will, their ideology. And anyways, Trump, these judges, let me tell you something, I don't think there's any judge, when you think about it, is totally impartial. I don't see how they possibly could be. They're beings, they're human, and they have their own thought processes. They're not a machine. They're not a robot where you put the information and then a ruling spits out, completely impartial. It's impossible. You're going to get a judge that thinks a certain way. You're going to get a judge that doesn't know the law. You're going to get all kinds of judges. And let me tell you something, the industry as a whole, the legal industry, especially in Nevada, there may be other judiciaries as bad as Nevada's, but there is none worse, in my opinion. And I have firsthand experience. I've seen this. I've seen the illegal rulings, and not only illegal, grossly illegal rulings that go against the Constitution of the United States and goes against the U.S. Supreme Court binding precedences. They don't care what they do. The situation with me was these lawyers, these judges, wanted to pay lawyers that did not prevail in the case. I won the case. I'm the prevailing party. But these judges want to pay the lawyers. And why is that? It's no secret. In this town, we elect our judges. And that means they have to go raise campaign contributions to be re-elected. Now, who better to get campaign contributions from than the very lawyers that are appearing in your courtroom depending upon you to make favorable rulings for them and their clients? So they have a propensity to pay the judge off through campaign contributions. Now, if I tried to pay a judge off, I'd be guilty of trying to bribe a judge and I'd probably go to jail. But in their case, it's all kind of like a sanctioned illegality, if you will, and it should be done away with. We have to stop electing our judges in Nevada, and we have to come up with a better plan of how we seat judges. They have to go through a process, a vetting process where their qualifications are examined, their histories examined, their political aspirations or not are looked at, their ideology needs to be looked at, all kinds of things. They need to be vetted. And you have to have several candidates, I guess, file this paperwork and be vetted for the same position, the same department judgeship. And then it comes down to some sort of a selection committee that will make a final decision, or I guess you could leave up to the decision to a governor or somebody like that, or some other way. But we have to find something that takes the money out of the system, because the money leads to corruption, and then you end up with a system, a judiciary without any integrity. And that's destruction. That's a cancer. That's going to destroy anything. And for all these political people now, like Paul Ryan, who's making comments that what Donald Trump said about this judge was racist, because he happened to mention that his heritage was Mexican. The only reason Trump probably brought that up is because Trump is proposing to build a wall between Mexico and the United States. Now, somebody with a heritage of Mexican may not like that. This judge may have a propensity to have a fondness in his heart for Mexico because that's where his parents were from. Who knows? But the point is, when we become a country where a litigant, someone before a judge, can't make a comment that this judge may have a bias, we're not in a free country anymore. So for Paul Ryan, supposedly the majority leader of the Congress, makes a statement that Trump was racist for making this statement is just as out of order as anything could ever be. And beyond that, he represents the Republican leadership. And for him to make a comment like that, that's distorting the picture of the nominee for the Republican Party as a presidential candidate, is despicable. This guy is not the majority leader, anyone that I want in Congress to be in a leadership position, because that's outrageous, absolutely outrageous that he can make a comment like that. As a party, and I'm not one for parties, I think the parties need to be made illegal. Corrupt organizations that they are, they need to be made unconstitutional, and they need to be eliminated from the face of this country. And our forefathers warned us about the illegality and the corruption that these parties are subject to. And they did not provide for them in the Constitution. I think they probably should have, making them illegal right then and there. But anyways, they warned us about them. And then here we go, and the states end up with the power that they have enumerated to them, that's in our Constitution, makes these parties. And here you go, you're right back in the same position. Now, why these parties have influence in federal elections, I don't know, because these are actually state parties. But they all get together and they make themselves a federal party for presidential elections. There's no other, any other elections for senator, congressman, or anything else. It's all done by the states. So I think the federal election for president, these parties should have nothing to do with it. You should not have a national DNC or a national RNC or Tea parties or liberal parties or independent parties or anything else. They all should be made illegal. And that should be a goal of this country. And clean this mess up. But when you have a supposed Republican leader like Paul Ryan making a statement about the nominee of the Republican Party for president, you're just distorting the whole picture of what you should be for. You should be for Donald Trump in all ways. You shouldn't bring any black marks against him whatsoever. And that just destroys the party, destroys the nominee, and makes it a tougher road for him. I mean, what are you trying to do? You're an idiot. And Governor Sandoval here, backing off of Trump a little bit. Of course, you got Leslie Gramnesty, whoever. I mean, I would expect that from him because he's a moron. He runs for president, doesn't even get 1% of his own home state. Absolutely absurd. And they get these Romneys and these people are showing their true colors because everybody does not like Donald Trump because he jeopardizes their power. And it's just despicable. Their agenda is obvious. Why they don't like Donald Trump is because he's not going to sing to their tune. He's not going to march to their drummer. This is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous behavior. And then look at this judge that's made these rulings. And Paul Ryan doesn't know what any of these rulings are. Do you think he's done any research on what this judge has done in this Trump case at all? No, of course not. They just mouth off without knowing the facts. That's what these elected people do in our distorted, hijacked system that we have here with these political parties. Can you shut the door? Jeez, the guy comes in, leaves the door wide open.
Because he's bringing a TV.
No, but he didn't when he came in.
Oh.
I mean, the air's on.
I'm going to have to make a run with my mom. She's gone for about an
But anyways, Paul Ryan, I don't respect him anymore. He's done as far as I'm concerned. Even Newt Gingrich, who I used to support, he comes out and makes those comments about Donald Trump. And this judge comment that he made saying he's from Mexican heritage. Gee, maybe the judge has a little hair about Donald Trump because he's trying to build a wall between the Mexico and the United States. So maybe, just a thought, gee, that judge may have some bias against me. The rulings that he made certainly seems there's something going on. And I'll just name one that I'm kind of know something about. There was a plaintiff in this case against Trump. And they deposed this person, and she absolutely just fell flat on her face. Her whole complaint, I guess, just deteriorated right in front of them, and she was a pathetic plaintiff. And the plaintiff lawyers and so forth wanted to get rid of her, and this was one of the chief plaintiffs in the case. And they asked to have her relieved from the case, removed. Well, and the judge approves that, but keeps the case going. So how do you remove a chief complainant, one of the original plaintiffs? How do you remove them from the case and then you keep the case going on? Does that make any sense? That should have been summarily dismissed right then and there. The case was falling apart. And I don't know what the specifics were of the deposition, but apparently it was pretty bad for the plaintiff side. Very unusual maneuver to have a plaintiff removed from a case. And that just smells to high heaven. And this judge goes ahead and rules that way. I mean, I would question that myself. And I think in this America that we have here, we have every right to question that. And when you have these Paul Ryans and Newt Gingriches and McConnell and all these supposed leaders of the Republican entrenched establishment, who we all know have expressed their deep hatred, if you will, for Trump, because they don't like the fact that they're not going to control this guy. They can't stand the thought of that. They're supposed to be in charge. They're the ones that say who the nominee is going to be. They're the ones that make all the decisions. Well, sorry about that. You've blown your deal because you've not lived up to your oaths. You've not lived up to your campaign promises. You get up in power, you get elected, and then you do the opposite of what you told your electorate that you were going to do. You swore up and down that you were going to defund Obamacare. What happened? What happened? Not only did you not defund that, but you ended up approving Obama's illegal mandated immigration fund that he had set up. Absolutely, this country is broken, deeply, deeply broken. And Trump was right to make any comments that he wanted to make when he questions the integrity and the bias of a judge. You have every single right to do that. And for this country to complain about it is pathetic. And I understand, I heard today on another show that the Democrats were bitching about a judge that had made a ruling on a case that they didn't like the outcome, the judge's ruling. So they blamed the judge, his integrity, as being white privilege. So I guess this was a judge that didn't have any heritage from Mexico or any of the other countries. I guess he was a pure American, if there is such a thing, or maybe several generations or what have you, solidly here in the United States without any ties to any groups or racist or other things of that nature. So this was white privilege. And these are what the Democrats say. You see, when the shoe doesn't fit them, they complain about the shoe. And it's all right for them to do that. But when Donald Trump complains about a judge perhaps being biased, that's not all right. You see, they're hypocrites. They're huge, huge hypocrites. And we need to realize this, so we need to discount everything they say. And we really need to make an effort to get rid of the political parties, get rid of these people like a McConnell. I never liked this guy. This guy lost me back in the Clinton days, the first go around of the Clintons. Can't believe we're going through a possible other one. It's just amazing to me. But when Bill Clinton was impeached, someone, a moderator, somebody, pundit on TV, asked McConnell a question whether he thought that Clinton should resign because he had been impeached. And instead of pounding his fist on the table and saying, of course he should resign, any impropriety such as he's represented to be is not a presidential person anymore. He needs to go. Instead of saying something like that, what does McConnell, this wimp, he goes, well, the president hasn't taken that position. No, we asked you, asshole, what do you think? Not what the president thinks. We know what he thinks. We know the position he's taken. What kind of wimp idiot are you? And when I saw that, I went, this guy's nothing. He is a complete nothing, a zero in my opinion. And in my opinion, since those days, which were the 90s, has only gone downhill from there. This guy shouldn't be the leader of anything. He's not even qualified, in my opinion, to be a senator. He's a dirtbag. And most of the leaders in both parties, particularly the Democrats, I got nothing whatsoever. They're just despicable because they're criminals themselves. Look at the person running for president. She could be indicted for some serious, serious crimes. And these aren't crimes like robbing a bank or getting a BJ in the office. No, these are crimes that go to the very heart of the sovereignty of our nation. This was a situation where she subjected classified, highly secretive documents that we would never want to fall into our enemies' hands. And she allows them to be on her own server, subject to hacking, and was hacked. And I think the Russians, and I think the Chinese, I think all these people have her emails, and here we are, and we're having trouble getting her emails because she destroyed them. After it became known that she had them, she destroyed them, wiped them clean. What, you mean like with a towel? Oh, God, what a presidential candidate. The Democratic Party has reached the depths of despicability. They have no bench. They have no qualified people in their party whatsoever that could ever be a leader. Ever, ever. They're despicable people. They're liars. You take this Indian from Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren, that used her high cheekbones because she doesn't have any Indian blood in her. She used the fact that she has high cheekbones to create some fraudulent documents claiming to be an American Indian, because that helped her get into Harvard or wherever or whatever else she used it for. Kind of like Obama and what he was doing with the colleges and so forth that he got into. You know full well some of the paperwork that was filled out from that guy when he was getting into all these Ivy League schools. How did he get into these schools? Where's the documentation? All hidden, buried, because it can't be exposed, because it exposed him for exactly what he is. Someone that plays both sides of, will say anything to get what he wants. And I guarantee you he passed himself off as a foreign exchange student, getting all kinds of breaks on tuition and what have you when he went to these colleges. How could he afford to go to these places? He didn't come from any money. His grandmother or somebody worked for a bank, and I think his mother was a hooker. And this is what we have that comes from the Democrat side of the aisle. Remember that. Look at the character that comes from the liberal side of the aisles that we elect as a president. Look at their character. Look at Bill Clinton's character. He coming from Arkansas, a governor of Arkansas that has Troopergate and all these other scandalous things. What follows around the Clintons is devastation, surrounds them, just controversy and corruption. And it just goes hand in hand with these people. And we think that this Hillary Clinton is going to be the first woman president in the United States. I don't necessarily have anything against a woman. I mean, there may be qualified women out there that could be president of the United States. I'm sure there are. I don't know why, if they're qualified, why they would want to be president of the United States. And that's an issue to be discussed another day, perhaps. But why would anybody that's qualified to be a success or knowledgeable about the way of the world and what makes things go around and around, why would they want to get down into the toilet and swim around with the crap of being a presidential candidate or even the president of the United States? Why would any qualified woman want to do that? So what do we attract? We attract a Hillary Clinton, who is the president of the Bimbo Eruption Squad that they had to put in place when Bill Clinton was in the White House, because they had all these bimbo eruptions where these women like Paula Jones and Kathleen Willey and Jennifer Flowers and all these names were popping out of the woodwork, erupting as the word implies, with their contentions that Bill Clinton raped them and things of this nature. Some of these people even know the design of Mr. Clinton's penis, if you will, that had some bends to it or what have you. I mean, this is the type of stuff that only comes out to me, it seems to be, on the liberal side of the aisle. When you get these characters, you get Billy Clinton with all the problems that he had. I think he just got picked up again for something. Richard, I don't know, whatever his name is. But the Clintons have some deep, very profound baggage. And why they have to put someone up like her to be president, run for president, is because they have nobody on the bench. Their bench is nobody there. Previously to this, we had an Al Gore, who was the most boring, stiff-boarded candidate, I think, ever. He talked down to everybody like they were a little kid. What a despicable character he was. And you get like a John Kerry, who's our illustrious Secretary of State right now under the Obama administration. The people that they put in these positions of authority are just pathetic. He gave a speech at a university the other day, Kerry did, and he talked about welcome to the borderless world. What the hell is that ideology that he's spewing out there? Borderless world? What in the world are you talking about? We're going to be a world without borders? What kind of ideology is that? How is that going to work? These people are crazy. They're insane. Their whole concept of how this world is, especially this day and age, when you have fanatical ideologues like ISIS and these Islamic fanatics disrupting the world through terrorism and everything. To have thought processes like these people seem to expound is just overwhelming to me. You're going to have a borderless world where you have people running around cutting people's heads off. You have Syrians pouring into this country called refugees. We don't even know who these people are. We have no idea. What we can see is 70% of the people coming in are young men of military age. Now, as Ben Carson used to profess, a terrorist organization would be guilty of terrorist malpractice if they didn't take advantage of the refugee situation and infiltrate some of their operatives in there and get them into this country. We know we have terrorists in this country that have been brought in here one way or the other. We had that incident in San Bernardino where they actually smuggled in this wife, supposedly, of this homegrown terrorist. They smuggled in this outside terrorist as the wife, and I think she wore the pants in that terrorist organization, and they ended up killing 14 or 20 people there in San Bernardino. This is what this country is becoming because we don't have any leadership. We have an ideologue in the White House that is out to destroy this country. He's not an American. He's something, but he's not an American. It's not America first with this guy. At least with Trump, it's going to be America first. And getting back to that judge type comment, when you have a heritage, apparently this judge's parents were from Mexico. That's pretty, recent, established contacts with Mexico. When our forefathers founded this great country of ours, one of the provisions they put in of who was qualified to be president was they had the theory that to be the leader of this country, you had to be born on the soil of the United States. That's what their natural born description meant. You had to be born in this country. And the reason for that is they fled tyranny from Europe, where you had all these states, not states, their own countries, Germany, France, England. And the leaders of these countries, some of them had cross ties to other borders, where maybe the leader of France came from Spain or Portugal, or you had cross-contamination there where the person that ended up being the king or leadership of one country may not have been born in that country. And they thought that was a very serious possibility for something bad there, because they determined that anybody that was going to be president of this United States had to be born in the United States. Now there's a reason for that. And the reason is because, let's say, you're born in Canada, like a Ted Cruz was. Okay, we don't have any plans at the moment or a situation where we might get in a war with Canada, but what if we had a Canadian in the White House and we did get in a war with Canada, and this Canadian president sitting in the White House had to push the nuclear button to send something into Canada? Would he do that having been born there? Or does he have a propensity for a loyalty that's just innate in him because that's where he was born, that would prevent him from doing that? Or anything else? That's a drastic example, but anything else that would be in anything that he would have to do as president of this country in negotiations with Canada. Would he have a propensity to be less American, if you will, when it came to negotiating anything with that foreign country because he was born there? This is what our forefathers meant. Now, when this judge sitting on the bench, parents that come from Mexico, does he have anything in his heart, any feeling at all, that he really comes from Mexican heritage? Does that have any sway with him? I would think that that would be something that somebody could certainly question, especially when there's somebody doing the questioning is proposing to be president of the United States, and he's proposing a wall, he's proposing some other things, such as Mexico will pay for it. He's proposing that the $58 billion deficit is going to go away, that Mexico is currently benefiting from. There's a lot of things there on the table that, and the immigration status of these illegal aliens, immigrants, if you will, from Mexico. What are we going to do about that? What policy is Trump proposing? Maybe this first generation American from Mexican heritage, maybe he doesn't agree with Trump on those types of things. Maybe he has a bias there. He certainly has ties to the Clinton Foundation through his organizations and what's so. The legal firm that he accepted to represent the plaintiffs in this case against Trump, they all contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Clinton Foundation, and maybe that's an issue where he's an avid Clinton supporter, and here you got Donald Trump, who's in a case before this judge that is running against Hillary Clinton. Gee, you think there could be anything there at all? You better believe there's something there, I guarantee you. And a guy like Trump is going to say what he thinks, and that's what he is, and that's the kind of president we need. Somebody that's not going to be politically correct, someone that's not going to think about the ramifications of what comes out of his mouth, and does he hurt somebody's little feelings and so forth. Let me tell you something. You come from a Mexican heritage where your parents were born outside of this country, you're going to have perhaps a propensity for some consideration for that country because that's where your parents came from. Very simple, very cut and dry, nothing to hide, and God damn it, put it out there because it's the truth. And anyone that says that Donald Trump is not qualified to be president because of his statement, like this despicable character Hillary Clinton said the other day after she got this nomination locked up, said that Donald Trump was not qualified to be president because of a comment he made out of his mouth. It's not something he did. He didn't lie to dead soldiers like Mrs. Clinton did in Benghazi. He didn't lie about having flown into Bosnia coming under gunfire like Clinton did. He didn't hide a personal server when he was part of the government like Clinton did. He did not destroy 30,000 emails to hide them from government inspection like Clinton did. All these things that Clinton did are physical actions that she took herself. And she says that Trump's not qualified to be president? Let me tell you something. As far as I know, Trump's not under investigation where they have 150 to 300 full-time FBI investigators looking at him for anything that's been exposed. I mean, 150 to 300 agents? I wonder if there's ever been a case before that's had that kind of scrutiny put on it. 150? And maybe that's the minimum amount of agents that are on this deal. Maybe it is closer to 300. I mean, that's a phenomenal amount of power, manpower to be used up. And then you think of what else has gone on here with the Clintons, with this Clinton Crime Foundation, and the way that she was Secretary of State and her husband was running around giving these speeches worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, raising all this money for the Clinton Crime Foundation, millions and millions of dollars from foreign governments. And here your wife is the Secretary of State? Gee, do you think they had any pay-to-play there going on? Are you kidding me? When the Clintons were in the White House, they were selling access to the Lincoln bedroom for political contributions. They were selling access to the business commerce chairman Brown on his jet, flying to and from countries like China, trying to put deals together. They were selling access and seats on that airplane for political contributions. How about to their defense fund? Here we have a president sitting in the White House and he needs a defense fund. And like Hillary said, when they left the White House, they were stone cold broke. They were bankrupt. Not only that, they were heavily in debt. I think his legal fees were, I don't know, $10 million or something like that. What happened to that? He lost his license to practice law. Our sitting president did. The highest law enforcement officer of the land, our president, had his license. He was disbarred from practicing law. And here he is, the highest law enforcement officer in the land. He lied to the American people. He committed perjury. And then he parses words when he's on TV, answering questions about Monica Lewinsky. I did not have sex with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. He lied. He lied. Thank God she had the blue dress. Well, you know what? She might be dead, because this operative they had named Jordan, I think he was had a date set up with Monica Lewinsky to read her the riot act, that she might not have survived that little encounter. You know, these people are despicable. Corruption and devastation follows them wherever they go. And after 7.5 years of Obama running around the world with his apology tour and disrupting the American country the way he has, with the devastation that he's caused with our economy, you know, the false numbers that they're coming out with, like an unemployment rate of 4.7%. Who in the right mind that ever took a math class would ever consider that to be anywhere near reality? There are 94 million people out of the workforce that want jobs, but they're not actively seeking them anymore or whatever, because it's a waste of their time. And 94 million people, I think our workforce, I've heard different numbers, but are about 220 million people maybe that are technically employable in this country. The rest are dogs and women and children and people that aren't really in the market force, as far as, you know, stay-at-home moms and people like that. But women, men and women that are in the labor pool are supposed to be about 220 million people. Well, if you have 94 million that are trying to find jobs and can't find them, that's a third of the country, of the work pool. Now, how do you have an unemployment rate of 4.7%? How do you arrive at that figure? That could only come from a despicable organization like Washington, D.C. How does this math work? It only comes this way because it's to benefit of Obama's administration to make a phony number out there to make him look good. Perhaps this unemployment figure of 38,000 jobs created this last go-around, the lowest in I don't know how many years, but that's pathetic performance. I think we need over 300,000 jobs per month just to keep up with retirees and natural progression of things, just to keep our head even. We need to create 300,000 jobs a month. And this was 38,000 a month. Now the question comes up. The Fed was thinking of raising the interest rates slightly here in the next time that it comes up to do that. And maybe this 38,000 job report is another fabrication from Washington. Maybe it's really not that low, but it was put out there because that would prevent the Fed from raising the interest rates. Now, if you know anything about anything, you know that we're $20 trillion is our deficit. We owe like 100-something trillion dollars, but our deficit is $20 trillion. Now, that's like the interest on the money that we owe. Now, what happens if the interest rate goes up? Just a point, 2 points, 3 points would be devastation. Jesus Christ. We would be so upside down, so bankrupt. If we couldn't print money, we'd already be bankrupt. But the Fed, I thought they did away with this. I heard they did. This quantitative easing, they call it. Don't you love the names they come out with? Quantitative easing. What that is the Fed prints money and then they buy securities, they buy stock, they buy whatever it is. They're propping up the markets, if you will, because otherwise the markets would collapse and then the economy would really tank. And who would be blamed for that? It wouldn't be Bush, because Obama's been in charge now for 7.5 years. So he would have to take the hit on that one himself. And being the type he is, he doesn't want any hits on him. He doesn't admit to anything. He's never made a mistake. He distorts the truth. You can keep your doctor. You're gonna save $2,500. He just lies and lies and lies, and that's what he does. And these numbers are a lie. Everything about what comes out of Washington D.C. is a pathetic, pathetic lie. And that's a shame, because they're ruining this country. It's leaders like this that we the people elect. And half the country, I like to use the number 47%, it seems to resonate. It seems to be the Democrat side of the aisle. I think the breakdown might be something like 40% Democrats, 40% Republicans, and 20% independents. So the real electorate in this country determines the outcome of presidential elections, for example, kind of boils down to the 20% of the non-party people that are called independents. It's which way they vote really create the electoral process that selects our next president. And it's very, very tight. But I would say 47% is a good number, and those people have been dumbed down so much that they've been brainwashed. They bow at the mantle of Obama. They think, oh, what a great president. What has he done? What is his accomplishments? The black people that seem to support him and grows. They just 95% of the blacks support Obama and praise him, and what a great job he's done. What has he done for the blacks? What is the black unemployment rate? When Obama came into office, I think shortly thereafter, the unemployment rate was 9 or 10%, something like that. Well, now they claim it's down to 4.7%. Well, let's say for the sake of argument that it's down half. That's a 50% reduction. What's the black unemployment rate? How much has that been decreased? Do you think that's down half? No, I think it's up. To tell you the truth, I don't know as I speak here right now exactly what it is, but you don't hear anything about it, so you know it's not good for the blacks. But the blacks supposedly are going to keep supporting the Democrat Party, who only makes them promises that they're going to do this and that, and they don't do anything. They haven't helped the blacks forever. I don't think they've ever helped them. The freeing of the slaves and all that was done as a Republican. Lincoln was a Republican. He freed the slaves. The Civil Rights Act and all that was passed by Republican votes. You have to look at history. Of course, the Democrat Party don't want anyone taught history, so they've taken all the history books away from schools and everything, because that's their game plan, is to hide the truth from the people that are learning things in this country. The young Americans coming up through the educational system have been distorted and brainwashed because they don't know the truth. And you can just see that by going to a college campus and asking some questions of who's ever walking by at the time. Ask them a couple questions. Go out here to University of Las Vegas. Go down to campus, go to the cafeteria. Sit with people, ask a few questions. Try to see what knowledge they have. And you'll get a pretty quick picture that these people don't know much. I'll tell you what, they might not even know who the president or vice president right now are. Very possible. A lot of people that are interviewed on the streets, they don't know who the president is. They don't know who George Washington is. They don't know anything because they've not been taught history. If they were taught history, they would know that these socialistic ideas, like what Bernie Sanders professes to want to implement, they don't work. They've been tried and tried and tried, and they fail. As a matter of fact, I think the Mayflower expedition that landed the Pilgrims over here They tried with a guy named Miles Standish, I believe, if my history's correct. They had this utopian idea that they were going to create this country here, Plymouth Rock. They were going to have a utopian idea that we're going to be a communal type system where the community all shares in everything, and they're going to grow what they need, the crops, the food, and everybody will be able to eat, and it's just going to be a big effort done together. You know, that takes a village type philosophy to create this utopian idea. And what happened was half the people didn't do anything, but they ate the food and they took advantage of everything, but they never did anything to create what have you. So, boy, Miles Standish and the Plymouthians looked at this and said, wow, this is not working out too good. So they decided to try a new idea and come up with which created capitalism. They divided the land so you could raise your own food now. It wasn't going to be done on a communal basis. And you get to eat your own food and you raise your own food. Well, what happened was the people raising the food became so productive at it that they raised more than they needed, so they could sell that food for whatever, barter it away with the Indians for some beads or whatever they wanted, and that created capitalism. Then other people would come over from Europe and they would see this creation of capitalism and they'd follow suit, and what happened was we created the greatest economical structure in the world, known as America. And we became powerful. In the 225 years we've been around, we've gone from nothing, from Plymouth Rock, to the greatest country in the world, the most powerful, the best living conditions. Everything about us, our GNP, everything is better than any place else. But we're doing what our forefathers warned us about. We've given you a chance for a great republic if you can keep it. And sure enough, these people were ESP was right on them. Of course, they'd seen experience, they knew history, and they'd seen what happened in Europe and with the Romans, and they collapsed because it became a country of consumers instead of producers. I mean, they knew these things and they remember them, and they knew to watch out for them. So this is what we've come from, and now we're trying to destroy ourselves. And we're doing it by allowing our whole country to be hijacked by the people that we put in power have become corrupted, and they've destroyed all of our judiciary is completely upside down and destroyed. Our economy is destroyed. Everything about it is just having problems because of what we've morphed into is a non-free society run by political leaders that are the worst people to be running anything. Can you imagine running a business where half your employees are for and half are against? It's not going to work. It's going to fail. Why would we try to run a country like that? It doesn't make any sense. So we have to wake up, people. We have to see what's going on. We just have to look with our eyes, look at the results. Are we better off now than we were 8 years ago? I don't think so. Most countries or the cycles that we used to go through, we'd recover. We'd have these recessions and we'd recover. This has been a non-recovery. We haven't recovered yet from the devastation that really the political leadership of the Congress and the Senate, when they won, the Democrats won control of the House and the Senate back in 2006. Nobody wants to talk about that, but they had the control of that for the last 2 years of Bush's administration. And that's when all these bad things happened. That's when the banking industry collapsed, the housing industry and all that was created by people like Barney Frank and Chris Dodd. They created this massive entitlement deal to everyone had to have a house, 125% loans to value, and all this created a huge bubble, and it burst and it collapsed our entire economy. And we have the Democratic control of Congress and House, Senate, that did that. And don't let anyone tell you differently. That's the way it was. So tune in tomorrow and we'll pick up where we left off. Tomorrow is Friday, last day of the week. So I look forward to talking to you then. 2 to 3 o'clock to Herd. This is Clark, out.